Okay, thanks for that, Mark. Okay, thanks everyone for attending today's meeting. I've got a brief statement to make on the protocols to be followed during this remote meeting. Please note this meeting is now being recorded and will be made available for public viewing following the meeting, and it's also been subject to a live broadcast. The members, please mute their microphones during the meeting when not speaking. This is important since it helps ensure the quality of order for all present. Your microphone should be switched on when invited to speak and switched off when you're finished speaking. Please use the raised hand button to indicate you wish to speak at any point. If any members lose connection of any technical issues during the meeting, please alert the clerk as soon as possible, either by using the chat function within the meeting or by email or phone. I will now ask the clerk to carry out a roll call for all members and officers participating in today's meeting. David?
Thanks, Chair. I can just confirm the members present. Councillor Davies?
Yes, present.
Councillor Farmer? Yep.
Yeah, present.
Thank you. Councillor Houston?
Present.
Councillor McPherson?
Here.
Councillor McGill?
Here.
And Councillor Thompson?
Present.
Okay, thanks. That's all members present. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that. And move to item 1 on the agenda. Apologies, the substitutions. I don't think there is any with a full quota here. Item 2, declarations of interest. No declarations of interest. Item 3, there is no urgent business. And item 4, which is the minutes of the special meeting of the Planning Regulation Panel from Wednesday, the 19th of January 2022. These are just for accuracy. Does anyone want to pick up any inaccuracies in the minutes? No. Okay. So we're going to move to the first item on the agenda, which is an exempt item, which is E5, which is determination of a civic licence application, taxi driver's licence. And at this point, we have to go to private session, given the legalities surrounding this. So if you could stop the recording, please, Mark. Okay. Okay, thanks for that, Mark. And David, do you want to carry out the roll call, please, just for elected members present?
Yeah, will do. Thanks, Chair. Just to confirm the members present. Councillor Davies?
Yes, present.
Councillor Farmer?
Present.
Councillor Houston?
Present.
Councillor McPherson?
Here.
Councillor McGill?
I'm here.
And Councillor Thompson.
Present.
That's everyone present. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that, David. And we reconvene the meeting at item 8 in the agenda, which is alteration and extension of existing dwelling house and erection of 9 dwelling houses and garages together with associated roads, footpaths and landscape land and building at Glenview, East Clean Road, Clean. And this one is subject to a hearing. And the running order for the hearing is the introduction of the report by the planning officer, presentation by the applicants, and presentation by any supporters, presentation by any objectors, and there is none today, and presentation by local members, and there is none today, and question from panel at the end, and then consideration of the panel. Ian Jeffrey, this is your application?
Yes, Chair. I'll just call up the screen share. Can you see the PowerPoint?
No, got your desktop. That's it now, yeah.
Can you see it now?
Yep.
Okay, great, thanks. The planning application site's located to the south of Plean, and you can see the red outline there of the application site, and the village of Plean to the north of that. The boundaries of the village of Plean is aligned in the black chain dotted line. The site comprises of a former, the site is a former coal yard which has been restored, and a bungalow constructed.
Chair, may I interrupt, Mr. Jeffries? I do apologise, Mr. Jeffries. Could I ask you to share your screen? If you, in the bottom right-hand corner, there's a little slider. Bottom right-hand corner, little slider, and next to that there's a like a screen. Just to the left of that, there's a thing, a little icon that says a screen. If you click just up above that, above it, no, just on the screen, up a bit.
Just up there above that, Ian.
That there. If you click on that.
Okay, right. Apologies. That's much better. Right.
Ian, we've now lost it. I don't think
There we
No,
are.
it's back again.
there we go. That's it. Got it.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll start again. The planning application site's located to the south of Plean, and it's outlined in red there. To the north is Plean village, and it's the village boundaries are delineated by the black broken line. The area outlined in blue there is the adjacent Plean industrial estate. To the west you have Plean Country Park. To the south you have areas of countryside. The site is within the countryside policy boundary, meaning it's located out with the village and in the countryside. The site is a former coal yard. It's been restored to a house and garden, the house known as Glenview. It's now a detached house and a domestic garden. It's in good condition, the site, and the house is occupied. That's the site there, outlined in red. Again, that's the bungalow that's on the site, and that's the domestic garden ground. This is the proposed plot layout of 9 new houses plus a restoration and extension of the house that's already there. It's arranged in a bungalow, in a cul-de-sac arrangement, with access from the A9 through Plean, leading down the Glen Road. I'll quickly go through the elevations and floor plans. You'll see that they're in a sort of cottage style separate house types. They're all very similar, and these are 3D model images that are probably easier to get a hold of visually. And that's what they all look like. That's the 3 houses that I've just showed you in the planning elevation form. Gives you a bit of a handle on what the, what's proposed within that cul-de-sac arrangement. This is the access to the site from the A9. The road you're looking at, a narrow road you're looking at there is called the Glen Road. This is the Glen Road there, leads down the way from the A9 to the site, and you can see that it's sort of, the site's at a lower level here from the main road, A9 further up. That's the site there, looking down from the west, looking eastwards. Along the side of the site, beside the A9, you've got mature screening, and you've got a flat level site. This is the site of the former coal yard. And to the right hand side, or to the rear of the site, you have a line of trees that are proposed for removal. And that's the PowerPoint presentation complete. And the recommendation is for refusal as per the report. There's 3 representations in the report from the general public, which have been taken into account. No objections, but 3 comments received. That's the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Ian. Move to the second part of the hearing, which is the contribution by the applicant and agent. Now, gents, there's 2 of you here now. Your contribution is limited to 5 minutes. Are you splitting the time? What's the position here?
I'll be speaking for kind of circa about 3.5 minutes, and Gavin Hepburn intends to just summarise with about a minute towards the end, so we should be well within the 5 minutes.
Okay, Mr. McFarlane, I've got a stopwatch here. After 4 minutes, whether it be yourself or Mr. Hepburn, I'll ask you to start summing up, as I say, limited to 5 minutes. Okay, if you just want to proceed, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Chair. Good morning. My name is Neil McFarlane of Machen Dunham McFarlane Architects, who are acting as agent for the current planning application on behalf of the applicant, Hescott Engineering Limited. We've obviously just heard the officer's presentation in respect to the current application, and we would just like to take this opportunity to reiterate a few aspects of the proposals which we hope will ultimately assist in your determination of the application. Firstly, there are no technical constraints preventing development. This has been accepted by the case officer through the application process and is confirmed within the report of handling. Secondly, there are also no public or statutory consultee objections to the proposals. It is therefore apparent that the sole reasons for the officer's recommendation noted within the report of handling in front of you are that the site has been deemed not allocated for development within the current local development plan, and that the proposals have been deemed contrary to LDP policy 210, housing in the countryside. Dealing with each of these points in turn, the site is located between the existing industrial premises and housing within the Plean settlement boundary, with the site being identified within the current local development plan as an employment safeguarding area. It is therefore our view that the site cannot be classed as countryside, given its contrary definition within the LDP, which alludes to the site already being allocated for employment. It is equally clear that the site is and should be viewed as being within the village, which suggests an anomaly in the local development plan where this site and the adjoining industrial estate lie immediately out with the existing settlement boundary. With regards to housing in the countryside, the proposals and existing development within the village and industrial estate create a cluster that is more than 3 dwellings, with dwellings that all visually relate to each other. The proposed development sits within this wider group on an easy definable site with defensible boundaries to all sides. Alternatively, the site can be looked at as a form of infill development between the village and the industrial estate. It is appreciated that the guidance seeks to avoid such situations where housing in the countryside leads to an extension of a settlement boundary other than in exceptional circumstances. However, there are exceptional circumstances in this instance relating to the economic benefits that will accrue from the development being undertaken by a local company. Finally, the site is a brownfield site and previously developed land. The case officer accepts it was a coal yard in paragraph 2.1 of the report of handling, with the site investigation report confirming its previous use, resulting in the requirement for site remediation. As you will be aware, there are certain criteria within Policy 210 which permit housing in the countryside, one of which being development of brownfield sites. Scottish Planning Policy's glossary of terms defines a brownfield site as being land which has previously been developed. The site therefore cannot be assessed as anything other than brownfield, and as such does in fact fully accord with the requirements of Policy 210, housing in the countryside. It is for this reason, together with the lack of technical constraint or third-party objections, that we hope to find you an agreement that planning approval should be granted for this modest residential development. I'd like to thank you all for your time this morning and take this opportunity to pass you over to the applicant, Mr. Gavin Hepburn of Hescott Engineering, who would like to say a few words. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Hepburn, you've got just over 2 minutes to make your contribution, please.
Thank you. Good morning. The reason I asked for a word at the end of the 5 minutes was to quickly introduce myself, our company, and explain the connection we have with the site at Glenview. Our company, Hescott Engineering, began 34 years ago in Carbrook Industrial Estate, next door to Glenview. We outgrew the workshop and moved to Larbert, but 3 out of the 4 directors, including myself, still stay opposite the industrial estate on Cardrowan Road, with the 4th director further up Glen Road in Torwood. We're all local guys looking to improve and help Plean in the local community. We aren't property developers. We fabricate and erect structural steel with Wallace High, the new Cortonvale Prison and Plean Primary School itself, a few of our local Stirling projects. We employ between 50 and 60 staff, of whom 80% are all from the Stirling and Falkirk area. And this is the same ethos we would bring to the development at Glenview, using local suppliers and local tradespersons to create local jobs through 2022 and 23, which investment terms we believe will be circa 2.3 million. My own personal involvement with the project goes deeper than this, as the houses have been designed to allow ease of movement for anybody with mobility issues. And my hope is for my wife's mum and dad and grand to move from upstairs bedroom house in Bannockburn into one of our new homes. My family have stayed in Plean for over 60 years. My dad born and bred in the village, my father-in-law born and bred in the village, and I've stayed in Plean for 43 years myself. I know the history of Glenview. I played in it when it was a coal yard as a kid. I played football in it as a teen when it was a garden, and I walk my dogs there now when the country part's too muddy for them. I know Plean's got its fair share of problems, but I went to school there and my kids went to school there, and you won't beat it for community spirit, and hope this development goes ahead and the new families will enjoy Plean as much as I have. Thanks for your time, that's all.
Okay, well done, that's exactly in the 5 minutes there. Okay, now open up now for questions from panel members. Ian, I'm going to start off here with 2 or 3 questions for you here. And I think it was Mr. McFarlane that said here, in relation to this site, and if you could maybe pull up your PowerPoint presentation again, please, Ian, if you don't mind. Because I think the key issue here is that this site sits within the area that's earmarked for it's an employment safeguarding area. So the kind of dotted line. Could you get up the block plan, please, Ian?
Yeah, apologies, I'm trying to get hold of it. Is that helping you?
Yeah, if you that's not this other one, it's that one there. Now obviously the site's shown hatched in red there, which is obviously the red line boundary. But looking at page 201 of the local development plan, the dotted line actually goes right up. I think I'm correct in saying that. So the site is within the purple line. I think you would agree with that?
Aye, yeah, that's right. I mean, the employment safeguarding area covers the both the industrial estate and the site. Okay. Again, I mean, the map that you're looking at now was only to give you an indication, a helpful indication of where the site is and industrial estates and stuff like that, but it wasn't in any way referring to the employment safeguarding area, but I would confirm the safeguarding area covers the Plean estate and the site itself. Yes. So
that's fine, Ian. So I'm just thinking, presumably, if there was a planning application come up next week for a business within that area, you would find it very difficult to refuse. So if there was an industrial site came forward, an application for that same site, given it's already within the safeguard area, reasonably you couldn't refuse it.
That's right. It's I think it would be acceptable in principle, like everything else. The size of it, you know, the height and all the rest of it, and intensity would be looked at, but the principle would be completely acceptable.
I think Mr. McFarlane hit the nail on the head. That's the issue of an anomaly. You know, it's okay for industrial use, but it's not okay for housing. That to me is a bit of an anomaly. Ian, in relation to the argument about brownfield, right? I'm interested to read obviously the 2.14 G of your report, which says the site is well maintained garden, and so is not significantly degraded visually and environmentally, such it can be defined as brownfield. However, 2.17 of your report states that the southern part of the site is in a highly degraded state. So is it fair to say the brownfield states come down to being highly degraded or significantly degraded? Go and explain that to me, because that part is, but the whole site isn't. So is it just part of it is highly degraded? That's not enough to make it significantly. Therefore,
yeah, sure, Councillor. I think it's really, I would just break it down to say that it's accepted that it's been previously developed, and so that fits with the definition of brownfield. It fits that the site is contaminated in as much as there's been a ground investigation report that Environmental Health have looked at, and they have recommended that the remediation measures are carried out. So there's the degradation from contamination is there, and that's accepted. I think the only kind of difference I think we've got is the visual aspect, that it's not visually degraded. I think that's really the nub of it. It has previously been developed. There's contaminated. A part of it the site's contaminated, in terms of ground investigation, but visually it's not. So that's really what the only difference is, I would say. It's definitely a site which has degradation in terms of contaminated land. Yeah, I hope that helps.
Okay, no, that's fine, Ian. I think it's fair to say that it's only going to be decontaminated if the development proceeds. That's the issue that I've got with it, to be honest with you. So, and I have a bit sympathy with that, to be honest with you. That I've got a couple more questions, but any other questions from panel members? No more questions yet. Councillor Davis.
Thanks, Chair. Just looking at the image of the industrial estate on Google Maps, and this site is sort of squeezed between that and the existing village. I accept that sort of in terms of the tight definition of countryside, it might fall into that, but it's hard for me to accept that this is countryside when it's squashed between an industrial estate and an existing village. So I appreciate the letter of the law might be calling it countryside, but in reality, it seems to me it's really sort of semi-industrial, semi-urban already. That's just really an observation.
Ian, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, it's about the nature of the site. It has a sort of semi-rural setting. It's definitely from a visual point of view, it does relate visually to Plean as a village. It's not sort of some isolated site out in the wide open country. So it certainly reads as linking to the village. There's in my report, I think, makes that clear. So there's no question of that.
Okay, Councillor McGill.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask about the trees. You showed some trees for removal.
Yeah.
And I see in the report that this proposed to replace these trees with new planting.
Yeah.
So these trees are obviously quite mature, and I'm just wondering how many trees are going to replace them. Are it going to be one for one, or because obviously the mature trees are going to do more for the environment than immature trees. So I just wondered how that's going to balance out, and and where the new planting would be?
Yeah, there are no proposals yet for a new planting. That if the application's accepted and approved, it would be subject of a planning condition where the architect would prepare detailed landscape new planting proposals for trees and include hedgerows and garden, associated garden. So that could be done. I think, to be honest, I think there's approximately 60 to 70 trees aligned along there. I would be unlikely to have that number of trees within 10 plots, as proposed. So I'd probably be struggling to get that number of trees, councillor, but I think it would certainly be fair to say we could ask for a good quality landscape scheme. I don't, in terms of the loss of the trees, I don't see that they're of great setting to the country. They don't have a high amenity contribution in terms of their appearance. They have a shallow root system, I understand, and potentially subject to be blown over by the wind. They're part of they grow over the Plene burn, and it's a sort of a ditch there with where I think the trees have contributed to a culvert along there of the burn, where the pipe of the culvert sort of quite badly broken up in places, and it's the whole sort of system of drainage along there is not good, and it's quite dangerous in terms of crossing for humans and animals. So the whole clean up of that area in terms of the tree clearance and sorting out the burn from a sort of water drainage flooding point of view, and that associated with the decontamination of the site from its previous use as a coal yard, all these things from a sort of a technical point of view, which includes the tree removal, is quite a good idea. Do you know what I mean? In terms of environment improvement, there's a whole set of things that all combine together. But in terms of like for like tree planting, we probably couldn't equate 70 odd trees, but we could have a quality landscape scheme if approved.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking so much about the aesthetics of it. I was thinking more about the carbon dioxide effect.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for your answer.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, any further questions? If not, a question for Chris Cox. Chris, this is more a kind of strategic planning question I've got, and this one, there's no doubt in my mind there's a lot of anomalies in this one, and I get it's probably a balanced decision that Ian's come to in this one here, but there's so many positive comments. I don't think I've ever saw an application or a report like this for a long, long time. And I'll read it. It says that 2.12, it says the application does not significantly deviate from NPF 4. 2.15, so would visually integrate vigilant is not considered the proposal would harm in the countryside. So basically, presumably, the officer recommendation for refusal is it because it's not included in the LDP? Is that the kind of sole reason for it? The refusal recommendation?
Good morning, panel. Thank you, Chair. Chris Cox, Planning and Building Standards Manager. Yes, so the site is not allocated for housing purposes in the LDP, and the report has assessed that the site can't meet the criteria of 2.10, which relates to sites for housing where they're not allocated in the LDP. So really the number of the refusal comes down to the proposals not being able to satisfy 2.10. The LDP is the legal basis upon which we are to make planning decisions, unless there's other material considerations that would indicate otherwise. So the report is well balanced in my opinion, in terms of how it has outlined the relevant material considerations and the assessment. So yes, I think it's fair to say that the report has reflected positively on the merits of the site, but it's been brought forward with a recommendation for refusal based on policy 2.10.
Okay, thanks for that, Chris. Any further questions from panel members? No. No. Okay, the recommendation is there on this item, recommendation 1 and 2. Does anyone want to move the recommendation to refuse the application? No. Okay, I'm going to make the recommendation we approve this application, and I'll give the grounds for my going against officer recommendation. I did speak to the Chief Planning Officer in the event of going this way, and I'll read it out. It says, the proposed development is located on a long-standing brownfield site. It was used as a coal yard and before that formed part of the colliery. The site has been environmentally degraded by its previous usages, and the local environment would benefit from the remedial works recommended in the ground investigation report. The redevelopment of a brownfield site accords with local and national planning policy. The proposed site borders the current residential settlement boundary of the village and would be a logical extension to it based on its current use. It will provide a natural rounding off of the settlement between it bounds the industrial estate and countryside beyond. The existence of the industrial estate and the existing landscaping features provide a defensible boundaries and a natural stop to further development. The site is allocated for employment development in the LDP, and its use for housing would be acceptable for the reasons I've said, albeit that it does not accord with planning policy 210 of the LDP. I'm not going to mention the economic benefits of it because it's not a material consideration, but you had Mr. Hepburn saying there about £2 to £3 million of development, and there was a lot of deprivation. I'm going to leave part to that issue, to be honest with you, so I'm looking for somebody to second my motion to approve. And want to second that? Councillor Davis?
Yes, Councillor McPherson, I'll second the motion.
Okay. And is there anyone otherwise minded? No. Okay, I'm just going to check with David, given that there's no amendment, is that presumably the application's approved?
Yeah, that's fine, Chair. The panel can approve it unanimously, yeah.
Okay, so the application's approved unanimously, and thank you very much to Ian. Yeah, I was going to ask you about the planning conditions. Presumably they'll come through in the planning schedule, yeah?
Chair, sorry, could I ask, I tried to get in before you made the decision there. This application would be subject to developer contributions. Could we also have delegated authority to prepare the necessary Section 75 and planning conditions? We would also be asking for delegated authority for the conditions. However, were you just asking there for them to be placed on the schedule?
Yeah, I think that's a normal process, isn't it?
We would normally just have delegated authority to do the conditions to carry out the decision of panel, but I would need to ask with Chris if she feels there should be a deviation from that.
Chris, I'm not precious about it, whatever the process is.
Okay, yeah, the standard process is that we have delegated authority to agree standard conditions. If there's anything that's unusual, then we would put that onto the schedule, but standard conditions is delegated to officers. Okay, I'm happy with that. Okay, thank you. We'll have a 5-minute recess and then we'll come back for the exempt item. Okay. Okay.
Chair, Ian Jeffrey has his hand up.
Yeah, I think Ian, sorry, apologies. Ian,
sorry, legacy hand. Chris and Mike covered the point I wanted to make. Okay, thank you.
Thanks for that. It's 11:01. We'll come back at say 11:10 for the exempt item. Thank you.